Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aviran, and I work for Wixs.com. And today's talk is about how we're scaling our engineering department and the entire company from a small startup to fairly decent-sized company, while we're maintaining the quality of our work and the feel that we're still working in a startup company. So for those of you who don't know what Wix is doing, so Wix is a website building platform. So we allow people without any technical skills to build stunning and beautiful websites with just drag and drops. This is our drag and drop editor. And a little bit about us. Wix currently has 86 million users. Those are the website builders. We're located in about 5 countries, running on 3 data centers. Part of my talk is about Wix's culture and how we recruit people and train them. So in 2015, Wix was #1 employment where engineers actually looked for us in Google that wanted to work for Wix. So Wix is a very fast-growing company. Okay, in 5 years, we grew from 100 people to over 1,000 people, and that wasn't easy. And I want to recap of how we evolved as a company from basically a small startup to 1,200 people. So let's go back in time. So usually when a small startup starts and when we were around 100 people across all the departments, about 15, 20 engineers, this is how we work. We worked in the functional teams. So we got the server team, the backend teams, we got the front-end teams, and we had about 3 products, more or less. And everybody did everything. Everybody went from one product to another, to all those 3, and we put something in the market, and developers were just assigned according to whatever is in focus. And that created a problem. The problem that we saw is that as we grew and we had all those 3 or 4 projects now, we started shifting resources between them. So the projects that were in focus got all the resources, and we progressed fast on those. But the other project got neglected. And since they didn't get any attention, they were kind of stale. And we always have to struggle, okay, what is more important, this one or that one? And that really didn't work well at that point. So we looked at the company structure. And we tried to figure out, okay, what should we do in terms of a company structure that will help us progressing fast in both the new, shiny features, but also not neglecting everything else. And when we looked at whatever models are out there, we see that there are 2 main models. It's the functional model that we're currently at, and there is a business unit model. And both of them have disadvantages. We felt really strong the disadvantage of the functional model, where developers were moving between products, so they didn't have really ownership on that product. They didn't really develop expertise in the domain that they develop, because they keep changing the domains. On the other hand, in the business unit model, you have work duplications, because you basically have silos of products. Every product has their own resources. They develop something, so 2, 3, 4 different products developing their own infrastructure. They're developing basically the same thing. So you got a lot of work redundancy, and there is no knowledge sharing between those teams. So we come to the conclusion there is no perfect model. But there are advantages to both that we can try and leverage. So what we did is we tried to create a fusion between those two. So the first phase of our evolution was to create gangs and guilds. So essentially what we did is we took the functional teams and made them a guild. So a guild is basically a group of people that share the same expertise. So all the backend developers belong to a guild, all the front-end developers belong to the front-end guild, QA belong to the QA guild. And on top of those guilds, we created gangs. So the gangs are basically the teams that are now responsible for developing a product or a feature. So those are basically the feature teams. And essentially what we did is once we assigned people to a gang, we tried really hard not to move them. So the reason why that worked is, first, in the business model unit, you have the silos. Once we have the guilds, we kind of eliminated the silos. Everybody belonged to a guild, but they also have a responsibility and an ownership of a product. On the day-to-day, the gang says to the developers or the people what to do. However, the guilds tell them how to do it. So the guilds are responsible for the methodologies and the best practices of how the developers are working. Now, there are certain functions within this model. Okay. First of all, there's this team lead, who is the product owner. She is responsible for the roadmap, for the tasks, for basically telling the teams, okay, this is what we're going to do this week, this is what we're going to do next week. All the team members belong to a guild. So you have a team member from the front end, you get a team member from the backend guild, you have a team member from QA, from support, from whatever the team currently needs. A guild has a guild leader. A guild leader is the manager who is responsible for everything that is relates to the profession of the guild members. Guilds also have guild masters. In Wixs, we don't really believe in architects. We believe that everybody should do their own architecture. But we do need to do code reviews or architecture reviews. So these are basically the senior developers that their job is to go around the teams and help them and teach them and mentor the team members across all the companies and help them do and be better engineers. Guilds also have the guild core teams. So this is basically an internal teams that are working for the guilds. They're not developing products, but they do develop the infrastructure that everybody is running. So all the core services, all the infrastructure, the framework that the teams are using is being shared by everyone and is developed by the guild core teams. So the guild role, it's not something abstract. The guild is responsible for recruitment. The guild is responsible for assignment. When somebody joins Wixs, we first recruit them to a guild. So we were looking for a backend developer. We usually don't know which team the developer will be assigned to, but they need to be good enough to be recruited to the guild, and then the guild sees the whole picture, looks at the team, and says, okay, this team needs a developer, and then assigns the team member to whatever team they need. Training. Guild is doing a lot of training and enhancing the engineering quality. Guild is also setting compensation. The salary of a person is determined by the guild. And it's also responsible for the professional development and the career of an engineer. Now, the guild is not just to be sure, the guild is not just this part. The guild is everything. So guild masters can work in the teams. Okay? The only thing that belongs to a guild that is not in the teams are the guild core teams, which are developing the infrastructure. Everything else is conducted, the training, the interviews, everything else is conducted by everyone on all the team. They all share we call it the burden, but they all share the same responsibility in the guild activities. So we rolled out with this model for about a year or two, and we continue to grow. This was about when we started this model when we were around 400 people. And then we grew to the next phase. And right around the time when we were about 800, we realized that it's really hard to manage a lot of people. The guild managers had to manage a lot of teams. The management, the Wixs management had suddenly more than 10, actually I had around 20 different products or product line or sub-projects. And we came to the conclusion, okay, we need to evolve more. We cannot leave them just as a teams. Because who will look at the roadmaps? Because we were looking at just one small set of, okay, this feature set or this sub-product that needed to progress. So we had to group those together because we saw that there are several teams that are developing different products, but that they belong to the same business unit. So the next phase was that we have all those gangs and we had all those guilds. And what we wanted to do is not giving people the feeling that they're now working in a big company. Okay, so Wixs is about 800 people at that point, and it's a fairly large. We were always trying to be very agile, very, very fast. So we thought, how can we let people still feel like they're working in a startup with everything from the responsibility and progressing very, very fast? But we're a big company. So what we eventually did is we created startups. So we actually created companies within the company. So the companies at Wixs are basically mini startups. At the head of this company, there is a CEO who is like the founder of the startup. And next to him, there is the tech manager or the VP R&D. And those startups have their own gangs. They have several teams that are working on something larger, on a big business unit. Like, for instance, an e-commerce solution. There are several teams working on an e-commerce solution, or hotel management system, or CRM, or email marketing. So Wixs have a lot of products that help our users manage their business. So we have a lot of different solutions that have nothing to do with each other, but each one is big enough that out there in the world there are really whole companies that are doing just subset of what we're doing. So we created startups within the company. And we have the product managers. And still we have the guilds who are responsible for the professional development of the people. But wait. We're creating silos. Again, while the guilds are mitigating the silos of the engineering, we're creating business silos. How can we as a company make sure that each one of the mini startups are actually aligned to the vision of Wixs? We have to have, in terms of product, we have to have the same language, the same feel. So they won't seem like different products, but they actually align with the overall feeling of being a Wix. So we solved that just like a real startup. So each company has a chairman, which is like the board. The startup has a board. So the chairman is one of Wix's management. And they're aligning the companies and the roadmap of the companies to whatever Wix's greater vision. Another thing that we did is, since we want those startups, those companies, to only focus on the business values, you need to provide us with a great product. But there are a lot of non-functionals that you have running a company, right? You got how do you do deployment pipeline? How do you write logs? How do you handle security? You have a lot of cross-cutting concerns that every company has to implement. So we stripped that out of the company, and we have those cross-engineering teams that are taking care of all the infrastructure, all the non-functional requirements that the companies need. So everything that they need to do is focus on the product, develop the product the fastest and the best way that you can. We will take care of everything else. You don't need to worry about clouds and servers and deployment and builds. It will be taken care for you. So we have those cross-engineering teams that everybody sits on, everybody's using the same infrastructure and can progress very, very fast. But now that we grew, the guilds have a much larger role than before. I mean, in addition to supporting the teams, now the guilds need to support the companies. And the guilds have to help the companies succeed. So essentially, the guild is a non-selfish organization that its whole purpose is to help others succeed. While the companies are very selfish, and their whole purpose is, I don't care about anybody else. I need to progress, and I need to develop the product the best that I can. I don't care what everybody else is doing. So now the guilds need to align the companies to see that everybody is developing in the right methodologies, to see what the roadmaps of each company have, and see if 2 or 3 companies are developing the same thing, we should now extract it. For instance, every company needs to send emails. So there's no point in 3 companies developing email send service, right? So the guild identifies those needs because they are working with the companies and understand their roadmap, and while identifies those common needs and extracting them and taking them back to the guild, and we'll say, okay, we will develop your email service. We will develop the mobile push notification service. Everybody can integrate with that. You worry about the product. Another thing that the guild is doing is looking after the companies that have strict deadlines or a new product that they want to launch, and now they need a temporary help. They need 2 or 3 more developers because they need to launch in 2 weeks. So the guild have resources that are being taken from the guild teams and temporarily assigns them to the companies. Okay, here are 2 developers, they will help you for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Usually those are the senior developers. So their barrier of entry into the companies is kind of low, and they already know some of what the companies are doing because they keep working with them. So this is the concept. But let's talk about how. How are we doing it? First and most important thing is the architecture. And you cannot talk about architecture without talking about Conway. Okay, so Conway basically says, okay, the architecture will look the same as your structure, your company structure. Okay. And if you're working on a monolith and you want to cram more people into a monolith, it's kind of hard. Because eventually, you put a lot of people working on the same code base, they will start to step on each other's toes and slow down the whole release cycle. So how do we solve this? You probably didn't hear this word like in the last 5 minutes. With microservices. Now, not a lot of people understand this, but microservices, one of the basic reasons to use microservices is to solve engineering scale. It's not about nice architecture. It's about solving an engineering scale, scaling your engineering. While you break your system apart, you can build smaller teams, and you can build a lot of them. So once you have a decoupled architecture, you can have an independent product lifecycle. You can progress a lot faster, and you can grow and build more teams and add more team members. And once the teams become too big, which slows them down, you just split them into 2 teams or 3 teams or whatever you need to do. Now, working in a microservices, it's one of the big questions. And okay, now I need to develop a new microservice. How would I do that? I can have a polyglotic system, the right tools for the right job. Maybe this team like Python and everybody is developing in Java. Should we let them? It's a good question. I believe not. If we're looking at development velocity and efficiency, we have to reduce our stack. Because you have a lot of cross-cutting concerns that everybody will need to implement, whether it's session validation, with security, with auditing and logging and deployment pipeline. If you start developing in multiple stacks, you have to build those things over and over and over again. And if you want to change something, it will simply slow you down. If you want to change the encryption algorithm for the session, now you have to develop it in Java, and in Scala, and in Ruby, and in PHP, and whatever are the languages that we have. But if you limit the stack to 1 or 2 programming languages, you only have to implement it twice, and everybody will enjoy it. Wixs runs over 200 microservices in production, and we're deploying about 100 times a day. So using this really helps us in doing things really, really, really fast. Now remember Conway? Microservices is small. And how do you build small microservices? You just build small rooms. So we're not working in open spaces. If we want small microservices, we designed our offices to be small. An office contains between 4 to 7 seats. And this is the team. And once the team grows to a different office, usually they will create new microservices. They will not work on the same microservices. Otherwise, a lot of people working on the same service, they will create a monolith. So we have small rooms and we have small microservices. Now, culture is very, very important, okay, because we want to give people independence. We want to give them the freedom. We want them to progress fast. And we really believe in culture that rocks. But if you think about it, what does it mean? There is one common denominator between all those job descriptions. Okay, the product manager, the project, the QA, operations, DBA. If you think about it, what's in common for them is that developers can do those jobs. They're not experts. But think about your startup, the 2 people startup. Who are those 2 people? I bet one of them is a developer. You don't have QA, that was the first person in the startup, right? You don't have a DBA. You have developers, they're doing everything. When you grow, you bring experts, okay? So with microservices and continuous delivery, we believe that the culture should be a developer-centric culture, where it's the developer's responsibility to push things and bring things to production. And the whole organization, with the guilds and with the companies, they need to support the developer in bringing the microservices to production as fast as they can. Okay, so you involve the developer in the product lifecycle, in defining the product. If you involve them in defining the product, they understand the product better and they create a better software. Testing, developers are doing the testing, of course, with TDD, by the book. QA are helping them, but they're not doing a job for them. Okay. Development and rollbacks are being done by the developers. Monitoring are done by the developers. And our ops team, which is DevOps, all they have to do is develop the automated tools that will allow developers to do everything that they need. And having that, we're changing production like every 5 minutes, okay, using those methodologies. But when you change your production system every 5 minutes, the last thing that you want to do is to break it every 5 minutes. So quality is really, really, really important. The quality of the job, the quality of the software, the quality of the engineers has to be something that is not left for chance. So if you want quality, you need better engineers. If you want better engineers, you have to have them professionally grow, okay? And you do that by investing in the people, in training. And who is doing that? The guilds. So the guild's responsibility is making sure that things are being done right. So how do we do that? Let's talk about in real practice. What do we do in order to make better developers? So, like I say, a guild is not something that is up there in the air and we just talk about stuff. Okay? Developers in Wixs invest 20% of their time in guild activities. So they work 4 days a week in the companies developing the product, and one day, every Thursday, we're an Israeli company, so we work Sunday to Thursday. Other places in the world, it's being done sometimes on Friday. We have a guild day. So during the guild day, everybody from all the companies, from the mini startups, stop working and they come into one space and they conduct activities with the guild. Now, the goal of the Guild Day is to build, which is very, very important, to build a cross-team relationship. The engineers don't work with each other on those day-to-days. They work in their own companies. And it's really important that they communicate and have the relationships with people from other companies that they don't see. They may be working on a different building. They share knowledge. Things that you know, that you do in your company, you should tell to the people in the other companies that are not familiar with what you encounter, with the things that you solve. You lesson learned. We assimilate people into the culture during the Guild Day. Promote innovation. This is how a Guild Day looks like. So we start with an open space, or a retrospective, where people discuss all sorts of topics that they want to discuss. Raise questions, dilemmas, share their knowledge, whatever they've learned and they want to share with people, with developers from other companies. This is actually a real photo for an open space. We do a project spotlight where every week one of the developers have about 15 to 20 minutes to tell about something that they did in their company or a new product that they've been developing. So everybody will keep in sync with activities that are being happening on different areas of Wixs. And after that, we have a tech talk or a workshop. Now, if you had to run an open space, one of the hardest problems is finding topics to talk about on open spaces. Since we don't want to lose a lot of time, we only have 1 hour to decide, okay, what do we want to talk about, and have fights about, hey, I want to talk about this, now I want to talk about that. So we collect them during the week. So we have this, this is the Pulse. It's like, if you don't know about the Pulse, it's like a internal social network, kinda. So during the week, when a developer encounters a problem or want to consult with other guild members, you just put it under the Pulse. It's like a forum. They put the agenda, and when we start the open space, we go over the agenda and we start picking the topics by order. We sometimes split to different groups and say, okay, this is the topic we're going to discuss, this is the other topic, 2-3 groups, and they're discussing those topics. Another thing in the open space, which is really important, is to talk about postmortems. Lesson learned from failures that different companies have. So other people will learn and review and understand and not doing the same thing twice. We want to learn from them. Those are blameless postmortems. They are being published publicly into the Pulse forum. Now, I told you that we're doing 20% of the time, and just show you like a schedule for a half day. So it's kind of 10%. The other 10% is invested in what we call a guild week, or as we like to call it, game of gangs. Every developer invests 1 week in a quarter. This is something new that we started. We used to do it like the half day, like after lunch. But now we're doing it for a week. Pair programming with someone from a different company, and they're working on stuff that is not related to their product. Things that you as a developer are hurting every day. So, for instance, I would really like the test to be faster, so work on that. I want to develop a plugin for the IDE, so you can work on that. I want to enhance the framework or the infrastructure because I'm missing some feature that everybody can enjoy, so you can work on that. You pair up, and for the whole week, you work on something that will improve the quality, that will improve the velocity of all the engineers. Once you did something during the guild week, probably it's not you invested 2% for a week, and now everybody in every company can enjoy the work that you've done. Another thing that we do in the Guild Week is we can work on open source, and also sometimes we just help other companies. If they have a deadline, we can pair up 2 people. Okay, you got 2 people for the next 2 Guild Weeks to help you push your product out of the door. So everybody is doing and helping for the greater good, for the greater Wixs. So what is the number 1 goal of the Guild Week? It's not finishing. It's doing it right. Because in your day-to-day work, you're in constant pressure, ship it, more features, faster and faster and faster. And we want, the Guild wants the people to do things the right way. So the number 1 goal of this Guild Week is to improve the engineering skills, to improve the quality of our engineers. And it's okay if you didn't finish your task, as long as you do it right. If you didn't finish your task, it will come to the next pair the next week. We try to break those tasks so people will finish them, and most of the time people do finish those Guild Week tasks. But the number 1 goal is quality, is doing it better so you can learn, so you can improve. So when you get back to your company, you will be a better engineer after that week that have passed. Now, one of the most important things is we keep talking about sharing knowledge. And it's not just within engineering. It's something that is a core value of Wix, is transparency. Everybody knows about almost everything that is in the company. And I told you that we designed our offices to be small with microservices, but we also designed them to be transparent. So while they're rooms, it's all glass. And that's on purpose. It's not an open space, but you can see everything. So everything is transparent. And we try to tell and share everything with everyone. And we open communication channels to company-wide activities via the pools, via email, via Slack, via HipChat, with whatever is out there that we can share knowledge, we use it. Teams can use whatever they want internally. A company have the company-wide communication channels. Everything that you need to do in order to share and be transparent, it's okay. Go ahead and use it. So we do all this to grow. We want to grow new teams. We want to grow fast. But we also want to grow in a healthy way. And when you grow, it's all about the people. Okay? So it all starts with your hiring process. Our hiring process is people are getting hired for the Guild. This is actually a real picture from about a few weeks ago. A person wanted to be hired in Wix. We saw that from the building. And said, okay, you're that passionate, come on, give us your resume. So we're doing the interviews. Everybody can be dropped. Everybody that is in the interview change and everybody is interviewing can drop a candidate. Okay? If it's enough for one person to say no, then we'll not hire a person. So once we hire the people, we want to grow new teams. So how do we grow new teams? So we start with an ambassador. We seed new teams with a person that is already understand and live the culture. The dev-centric ambassadors. Okay, these are the seeds. So a new team starts with usually someone who has been working for Wix for several months, maybe a year or two. And around them, we build new teams. We recruit around them so they can assimilate the new team into the culture. One thing that we really, really, really don't like to do is hire team leads. When you hire team leads, you hire somebody else's culture into your old culture. We do hire team lead potentials. Okay, so if a person, and we are looking for team leads, but when a person gets hired, you're not gonna be a team lead on day one. First, you're gonna work as an ordinary developer for 3 to 6 months. And once you understand the culture, and we do see that you're a team lead material for our own culture, maybe you can do great in a different company. But for our own unique culture and company structure, not everybody can do a good job. Once we understand that you're the right woman for the job, you can be a team lead. So, to recap, those are the main elements for a healthy growth. With transparency, that everybody knows what's going on. Quality, that you're doing a good job. Once you're doing a good job, we can trust you. Once you get the trust, you can gain independence, you create a company, you create a team that you can go, and that leads to growth because now when you're independent, I can extract those ambassadors, those seeds to create new teams and keep growing the company. So essentially what we created this tension, this healthy tension between the need to progress fast and deploy new features faster and faster, and also the other group that their whole concern is to do better. So fast and good. So don't leave the quality and velocity to chance. We created the structure that supports those. And there's a healthy tension between those, the companies and the guilds. And that's pretty much sums up everything that I have to say. And I want to leave you with this. And I think we have like 8 minutes for questions. By the way, if you want, I got you some Game of Gang stickers. If you want, you can grab them later. Questions? Yes?
What would you say is the main difference between the gangs and guilds model and Spotify's model of tribes, squads, and guilds?
On Spotify, the guilds don't really have any, you can say, power. Here at Wixs, guilds are actually a very important part of the whole process. If you want to get a raise in Wixs, it's the guild that is giving you the raise. The guild is the one that is recruiting. In Spotify, it's more of, okay, the guild is a group of people. If you want, you can belong to a guild. If you don't want, you do whatever you want. And they share knowledge. It's less official. In Wixs, the guilds are actually, it's like the operating system of the company.
So when I've seen Spotify before, they actually get the team leads, and it's pretty much forced on you that you are a member of the guild and you go to the guild meeting. So how many people have you got like outside of somebody doing the role? So for example, a developer, have you got people there that form the guild with them?
So
In Spotify's model,
yeah, me. Okay. So basically, in Spotify, let me see if I can understand you. You say that a person can belong to any guild of his choice. No. Okay.
in Spotify, if you're a developer, you'll be in the development guild, and the team leads force you to go to that guild meeting. So
Okay.
you have to be in the guild. It's like
So that okay. So in Spotify, the team lead forces you to be in a guild, but the guild has no official role other than
Knowledge.
training or knowledge. And here, the guild are actually it's an organization by itself. It has its own resources. It helps. One of the goals is to help other companies. Yes.
When you do peer review, how do you know how well the developer is performing in the company if you're not constantly working with them?
Okay, so how do you do peer review if you're not constantly working with them? So the guild, actually, the team leads are also, they belong to the guild, and they report back. They know their people best. The guild is not just the thing that you saw at the end. The guild is everyone. So the team leads do belong to the guild, and they know their people. And
They belong to different guild, right? In one.
they can, yes, but so like let's say for backend and front-end guilds, okay? So the backend developers belong to the backend guild. So the team leads, there is a backend team lead or the backend guild master. That is, if you don't have inside a company, if you don't have a team lead which belongs to the backend guild, you have the guild masters that in the guild that they're responsible to actively go and work with the team members, with the guild members inside the companies and work with them, do pair programming, do reviews. So everybody know, so the guild master actually know about every individual's performance.
What's the size of each guild?
What's the size of each guild? Some are big, like 100 and something people, and some are small, like 16, 20. So it depends. It depends on the profession. And we have for the bigger guilds, we have more than one guild master. For the smaller ones, we have one or just the guild leader. Yes.
How much autonomy does the CEO of the company have? What sort of person do you get? You don't want an entrepreneur then.
Okay, how much of an autonomy does a company have? They have a lot of autonomy. And we do want entrepreneurs. That's usually who becomes a company manager. They just like when you have a startup, you have a lot of autonomy, but you have to answer to a board member or to the boards, to your VCs. It's the same thing here. You have a lot of autonomy, but you have to answer to Wixs management, which is your board.
So, who are their customers? They can't hire their own people or
No.
So, and how do they sell? Who do they sell to?
They don't sell. So Wix is we're a SaaS company. So they sell to our 86 million users. They develop a product. Eventually, it becomes available to the whole Wix's user base. Okay? And they cannot hire their own people. If they need more people, they come to the guild and they say, "Hey, I need 2 front-end developers, and I need a support guy, and I need a dedicated marketing person that will work with my company." And it's the guild's job to hire those people and assign them to the companies. So this way, when we know that we don't compromise on the quality of the people. And eventually we can move one person from one company to a different company. We try not to do it too much. But we know that once a person come and work for a company, it's the same standard that everybody else have. So you get away with the situation where a company is really stressful and they compromise on the quality of the people, and they say, okay, yes, we compromise and we know those people are not that good, and then you get stuck with them and they cannot move anywhere else. So we eliminate that by having the guilds do the hiring. Yes.
You've talked a lot about how it's going very well for you. What are the things that are really hard to manage? So, in any kind of environment, there's always good things, always good, but always things that are more difficult to manage. What are the biggest challenges for you?
What are the biggest challenges in that model? Actually, management is a huge challenge in that model. Because, as you saw, a person the company structure is very vague. A person doesn't really know who is their manager. It's the guild from on one hand, and it's the company on the other hand. So this is why communication is very important. So a person can sometimes doesn't like the company, or a company is doing things that they forgot to sync up with the guild. So communication and people management, because they, like, the guild want to take this person and assign him to a different company, and now you have to sync up with the company so you don't hurt the company that you're taking the people. So people process tend to take longer, but that's the price that we're willing to pay. And I think we're out of time. Yes, we're out of time. Got the stickers. I'm here. You can grab me and continue to discuss this with you. Thank you.